You've heard of the great generals like Alexander, Hannibal, or Napoleon. But what about some of the worst generals you probably never heard of? Here are some. Quintus Servilius Caepio. One of the worst generals of Rome in 105 BCE, Caepio's army suffered a terrible loss against Cimbri forces, a Germanic tribe. The Romans lost an estimated 120,000 soldiers. Caepio was stripped of his Roman citizenship and exiled. William Hull. William Hull was an American military officer and politician. When the War of 1812 began, Hull was tasked with defending Michigan and invading Upper Canada. Hull's invasion of Canada was hastily planned and poorly executed. British forces and Native Americans deceived Hull into believing he faced a larger military force. Hull surrendered without firing any shots, and it was a severe blow to American morale. Hull was court-martialed for cowardice and neglect of duty and sentenced to death, but President James Madison commuted the sentence to dismissal from the army. Pierre-Charles Villeneuve, an admiral during Napoleon's era, considered weak, indecisive, and lacking in confidence. In 1804, Napoleon ordered Villeneuve to lead a fleet from Toulon to draw the British to the West Indies, then return to the English Channel to invade England. Disobeying orders, he sailed for Cadiz instead of the Channel, allowing the British fleet led by Admiral Nelson's enough time to return. The British blockaded the port at Cadiz with a numerically inferior force, and Villeneuve, upon learning that he was to be relieved of command, rashly struck out at Nelson's fleet. Nelson's victory at the Battle of Trafalgar was so complete that it established British supremacy on the high seas for more than a century. Antonio López de Santa Anna. Santa Anna was a Mexican general who was considered a bad leader for a number of reasons, including military failures, a disregard for civil affairs, and a lack of principles. He was also known for being arrogant and eccentric, and having no loyalty to anyone but himself. He was exiled multiple times, including in 1844 and 1848. Gideon Pillow, an American general during the American-Mexican War and the Civil War. He faced a court-martial for stealing a Mexican cannon. He lost Fort Donelson, which opened the door to Kentucky and Tennessee to Union forces and marked the beginning of the end of Confederate resistance in the West. George McClellan, a general during the American Civil War known for being too cautious and reluctant to fight. He failed to pursue Lee vigorously and finally convinced Lincoln to relieve him for being arrogant and insubordinate. Francisco Solano Lopez, a military officer and the president of Paraguay. He used his armies to fight with all of his neighbors and caused the War of the Triple Alliance, which was the deadliest and bloodiest war in Latin American history. Paraguay lost half its population and 40% of its land. Douglas Haig, nicknamed Butcher Haig, for the 2 million British casualties under his command. Haig had largely dismissed the effect of the machine gun on the battlefield. On July 1, 1916, Haig ordered his men to go over the top at the First Battle of the Somme, and 20,000 of them had the audacity to die almost immediately. There were 60,000 total British casualties on the first day of the attack. Haig saw no reason to change tactics. He continued to view attrition as the most effective strategy for defeating Germany. The British lost some 420,000 men at the Somme, and another 275,000 troops in a battle whose name became synonymous with pointless slaughter. After the war, the phrase "lions led by donkeys" came to be associated with the British Army for what should be obvious reasons. Erich Ludendorff, a German general during World War I and an example of a general who can win battles but still loses the war. He altered the Germany's plan for fighting a two-front war in a way that had weakened the attacking army on the Western Front, failed in flanking the French army, and pushed for the use of submarine warfare against Allied shipping, which brought United States to fight with the Allies. He refused the German surrender and effectively sabotaged the Weimar Republic by propagating the belief that he and his armies had been undefeated on the battlefield.